The 2007 recession was absolutely devastating for the American people. By the time we hit the year, I think it was 2010, about 4 million Americans had been driven out of their homes, foreclosed on as a result of lenders engaging in these predatory loans and then packaging up those loans as securities and betting against them in the stock market because they knew they were toxic loans. Absolutely disastrous for the American people. Again, 4 million Americans kicked out of their homes. But Joseph Lubeck, who's a CEO of a corporate landlord that goes by the name American Landmark and owns apartment buildings in the United States, was actually super jazzed about it. He felt blessed. Here's what he said in a 2023 interview with Ami magazine. I was very blessed in 2007 when there was an economic crisis. It was a good time to buy. Now, look, we are learning more about American Landmark. It's apparently an Israeli-owned company that owns massive swaths of US real estate. And what I want to know is, why is that allowed? Especially when you consider the fact that this Israeli-owned company also has ties to the IDF, deep ties to the IDF. They have deep ties to efforts in building illegal settlements in the West Bank, illegal settlements on land that was stolen from the Palestinians, of course. So, on top of all of that, let's say you don't care about what's happening to all those innocent people in Gaza. Let's say you don't care about the land theft in the West Bank. I would venture to think Americans would care about how renters are being treated by these mega corporate landlords, right? And if you're wondering, how does American Landmark treat its tenants? There's only one word to describe it: trash. They treat them like trash. Now, how do I know that? Well, let's get to the details. So a little bit about this company. American Landmark is a major corporate landlord with roughly 34,000 units concentrated in 111, what they're referring to as mega complexes. So they're these massive apartment buildings. And they stretch across 8 southern states. In fact, they specifically target southern states, red states, because they know that the housing regulations are a little more laxed and they can get away with essentially screwing their tenants over in the name of maximizing profits. And so 3 of the states that they're particularly concentrated in are North Carolina, Florida, and Texas. So here's what's going on. The company has a private equity structure, which they're very proud about, that allows investors from all over the world to essentially invest and to bet on the growth of this Israeli company's real estate portfolio. And here's what's even more repulsive about American Landmark. American Landmark is almost entirely owned by Elko, one of Israel's largest corporations. For years, Elko, via its Electra Super brand, has done extensive business in Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Why are we allowing them to buy and manage properties in the United States? Look, I gotta say, the United States, whenever there are economic interests in a foreign country, the US likes to tap into the war machine to get what it wants. Engage in coups, overthrow democratically elected leaders, do it by force. You gotta give the Israelis credit. They don't do it by force when it comes to the United States. They do it in a much more savvy, quiet way. And here's a good example of that. This morning, after we had put the rundown together, I was on YouTube, and I love Breaking Points. I think it's a great show. And I saw that they covered this story as well. And Sagar and Jetty had to do some throat clearing in the beginning of the story. He's like, look, we just want to talk about this because it's really bad for American tenants and it's a foreign owned company. We're not saying Israel controls everything. I'm not going to do any throat clearing here. None at all. I don't blame Sagar for doing it. I'm just not going to do it. This is sick. It would be sick regardless of which foreign country was behind it. Once you see how they treat American tenants. But there's an added layer to this in that the very company that's involved, the very corporation that's involved, is doing business in the West Bank on illegal settlements. They are committing crimes, essentially. That land belongs to the Palestinians. It's internationally recognized as Palestinian land. And so this company is aiding and abetting actual international crimes. And we're just gonna like totally be okay with them owning American real estate and evicting American tenants after they, of course, raise the rent as much as 24% in a single year. It's nuts. It really is. So Elko was founded in 1949, 1 year after the Nakba. And today it is the country's, meaning Israel's, third largest employer with over 23,000 employees. Elko also has deep ties to the Israeli military, including during the genocide in Gaza. So in 2024, the American Friends Service Committee put Electra on its list of companies that directly facilitate and enable human rights violations and violations of international law as part of Israel's prolonged military occupations, apartheid, and genocide. So we're gonna just allow them to be mega landlords in the United States and treat fellow Americans like trash. And that's what they've been doing. So the Nation and Type Investigations spoke to 43 American tenants, of course, who faced eviction cases that were filed by American Landmark. Now, Jeff Schuman, who's a tenant who had been evicted back in March from an American Landmark property in Jacksonville, Florida, said this while speaking to the Nation. I feel like they're predatory. They can put a person out on the street with no recourse. You want to increase the homelessness rate because we're short a couple of dollars? And I'm not condoning people not paying their bills, but sometimes people fall on hard times and they should be given a chance. But this is a mega corporate landlord and it's not even an American landlord, it's a foreign landlord. Why would they care about you? Why would they care about you when they could just raise rent to the tune of 24%? You have to read this incredible piece, guys, because there's so many details that we don't have time to get into. Granular details about how much they raise their rent, how far they're willing to go, how little they care about throwing people out of their homes, knowing that they have no place to go, knowing that they're gonna end up on the streets. They don't give anyone any chances. At one of their properties in Charlotte, North Carolina, that's called the Conrad, filings show that American Landmark's rate of eviction notices is 9 times the national average. American Landmark CEO Joseph Lubeck, it makes me so angry, man. It makes me so angry. American Landmark CEO Joseph Lubeck confirmed to the Nation that rent increases and displacement are part of the company's strategy. They say it out loud, just like members of the Israeli government, by the way. They say it out loud. So when they say it out loud, we should believe them. And then the anger that you might be feeling, the same anger that I'm feeling right now, should be directed toward our lawmakers who couldn't care less about what's going on here. I would be shocked if it's even on their radar. Here's what the CEO of American Landmark said. This is during the interview with the Nation. When we take over a property, the first analysis we do is, how much is the rent going to go up? And how many can afford to stay? We typically raise the rent anywhere from $100 to $400. So some people are absolutely displaced. Some people paying $1,000 in a distressed apartment are not going to be able to afford the $1,400 we're going to charge. On average, in all of their units, they raise rent every year at least 10%, at least. But of course, that's the average. In other cases, I like the one that I'm harping on about the 24%. Yeah, they raised the rent in a single year by 24%. That is insane when you kind of take a step back and look at the full picture, the full economic picture that Americans are facing, have been facing in this country. Consumer debt at an all-time high. Americans can't afford healthcare. Their premiums are doubling as a result of the Republican Party refusing to give Democrats the one concession they asked for, which is the extension of the ACA subsidies. These people who, unfortunately, we as the American people elected don't care about us. Democrat, Republican, most of them don't care about us. He also says, so based on the company's modeling, Lubick said, only 55% of existing residents are expected to stay, while the remaining 45% move out. It's disgusting. This is disgusting. And what's also disgusting is that scumbags like Senator Ted Cruz spend all their time on X and on social media whining about Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. He couldn't care less about his own constituents. He's a Texas senator. This is going down in Texas and North Carolina and Florida. Hey, Ron DeSantis, you care about this at all? You concerned about what's going down in Jacksonville? These people make me sick. And it's about time they made Americans in general sick, because we need to just vote these people out. They don't care about us.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.